Welcome to a continuation in my series on the symbols on the Magician's card. If, though, we take very seriously the presentation of the table as forefront, solidly planted foursquare in the card, we do need, then, to let ourselves be drawn to what lays on the tabletop, the items that rest there. Represent the four suits of the tarot, the four elements thought in ancient times to form the world, the four functions of consciousness in a more contemporary view: intuition, feeling, thinking, and sensation. Cups represent emotions, wands, creativity. Pentacles, the material plane, the power of making manifest. Swords, the cerebral plane, that which is thought and expressed verbally. The magician, it would appear, is going to employ all four elements and teaches us that our continual efforts to understand them better improves our capacity to function in a more balanced way, to create from a more balanced place, to envision realistic goals and to make manifest from that. Well born, perfectly prepared to live our lives. The power of what lies on that table is we have it in our possession. Johannes Freeberg refers to the items on the table as the magician's dowry, what he came with, came equipped with, came knowing, came feeling. Leads me to think, if these were the items in the fool's wallet on the fool's card, it reinforces that the fool already had everything with him he needed it. He's got to take it out, spread it out, consider it, and make best use of it. And therefore, the power of the presentation of these four elemental items on the table, perhaps the altar, on the magician's card. The magician's power is that he is the master of the tools. They don't master him. He has learned how to make the best use of them. He teaches us to master our own potential. Before I leave discussion of the elemental items on the tabletop, I have to mention, notice the tiny leaf on the wand. Remember how it fascinated me so completely on the Fool's staff? Not so often visible in different printings of the Fool's card, but very visible here. That tiny leaf. Something tender and beginning and unfurling. Perhaps a reminder that the magician is not yet at the height of his skills, and like the garden around him, they need nurturing and care to come to their full potential. Let's take a look at the wand held in the upraised right hand of the magician. White, again, that color of purity, of highest aspiration. It's in his right hand. It is raised with the symbolism, perhaps, of directing and controlling energy, directed focus. But the question then becomes, which end of the wand is the active end? Each end is identical. Each end the same, one pointing up and one down. Up, traditionally symbolized spirit and matter. Up and down, each equal, the balanced poles of existence. This is the wisdom of as above, so below. The lesson that mastery in one realm may bring mastery in another. Or beyond the energy of the word master, it is the understanding of one leading to the understanding of the other. That wand is an extension of the magician's will, the magic wand, if you will, that's part of esoteric practices. traditionally the length of the distance from fingertip to elbow, as it is in this card. It's the magician's will, aligned to the world he knows well, below, and his highest will, above. Many traditional interpretations are of the magician making manifest from above to below. But does the art of the card represent that? Or is he a conduit of energy in both directions? Does the magician experience a separation above and below? Or does he feel them both moving through him? We can look at it then as a two-way flow of energy. But we can also return to Waite's intent, at least one of the intents he wrote for this. He said this card signifies the divine motive in man, reflecting God, the will, in the liberation of its union with that which is above. Which unusual Waite phrasing can leave us scratching our heads a bit. But is it, in the end, very different from as above so below, as below so above? All is God, all is one. Experienced from the perspective of the magician, of each of us, as we create an intentional life. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, which Waite was intimately connected to through his involvement with the Golden Dawn, as above so below, as below so above. Is a magician stretching his right hand out to receive from above and direct it below? Or could we look at the double-headed aspects of his wand, and indeed the double balanced aspect of one hand raised, one hand lowered, that it is the symbol of his body as being a constant movement between above and below. We can look at the ends of the wand, those identical shapes to the ends of the wand he holds in his hand. They're most definitely phallic in nature. That teaches us, through the symbolism inherent there, of action, of making so, of directed outward energy. Above the magician's head, the mysterious Lemniscate, the sign of infinity. The magician is connected to a sense of timelessness above him through this symbol, and also that he himself is timelessness, that there is an internal and an external nature to this infinity, the internal represented by the Ouroboros cincture at his waist. Waite points out in his commentary that Gnostics and Martionists associated the number 8 with Christ, and he links this Lemniscate above the magician to Christ consciousness. Perhaps he's referring to the fact that early Christians determined through gematria, an ancient practice in which symbolic associations were determined by equating letters with numbers and finding the sums of the letters in words, that the letters in the name Jesus add up to 888, a number that they then equated to the Logos, or the spiritual sun, a symbol of enlightenment, which in the end could stimulate us to consider how divine force expresses or wants to express itself through our actions. Christ consciousness. It encourages us to bring ancient or higher wisdom to our consciousness, to look beyond the mundane and outside of ego for more information and insight, or to connect any task of living to a higher spiritual level. When I read that in a book someplace, I gave thought to this connecting the fool as spirit that comes to earth to live a physical existence. I saw the magician then as purely, solidly, he stands so firmly, feet spread, standing firm here in the card. I saw the magician solidly standing here, now, physically incarnate, but not having lost his connection to spirit, to the place he came from, to the Lemniscate above his head. That symbol is his connection to universal principles, his own infinite spiritual potential. The potential that arises from his willingness to partake of the greater experience, an exploration of the universe and eternal truths, to be willing to transform himself. The Lemniscate is a symbol of the infinite nature of energy, that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be directed. It's the power of continuous renewal as linked to all opposites. As the expression of a single source, everything comes from and returns to the same thing. Irene Gadd in Tarot and Individuation said, "The human being bears within himself countless possibilities that can be molded by a will, striving toward higher developmental levels to reach the ultimate goal, return to the original unity." The infinity within and the infinity without, the connection of the Ouroboros with the Lemniscate, representative, possibly, of the one true, higher purpose for the magician's living. I hope you'll join me in a continuation of this series on the magician's symbols in its next video in the series.